So, the title you have on your sheet may be slightly incorrect because that was the concept title, and then, 3 days ago I decided to rename it and kind of forgot to tell Bristech. Sorry. So, right, no service. Disclaimer, because I'm going to use a lot of stuff that I shouldn't use in the corporate deck. So, disclaimer. Who am I? I'm Mike Elsmore. I'm developer advocate for IBM. I work specifically in a group called Cloud Data Services. So, that's really tiny. Can you even read that? Oh, cool, because I've got to do some live coding. If you can't read that, you're screwed. So I work in Cloud Data Services. That means I use this stuff, which is Spark, Cloud, and -db. Compose, who's heard of Compose? Yeah, that's enough of you. That's enough of you. And Graph Data Store, which is my favorite at the moment. So I spend most of my days doing this, inevitably leading to me spending the afternoon doing this and wondering what the hell I'd written that morning. Eventually, by the end of the day, I sit about like that. So yeah, it's usually a good working day when I end up like that. So what's this talk about? It's when you have no service, which means it's offline web apps. Who here has tried to do offline web app stuff before? Yay, so some people are going to sit there going, oh, what's during this talk? That's always a great point. So offline web apps have usually been considered a second-class citizen. It's the only second-class picture I could find. Most people always go for the argument of why, if you're doing it offline, why aren't you doing it as a native app? Because most of the time I really hate OBC and I'm not even going to try writing an app in it. Sorry, I'm a web guy. So we've got all the parts we need nowadays to achieve most stuff we want to do for a offline application. First one is @cache. Who here has actually tried using it in production? Who here has had the problem of forgetting to put a timestamp in the bottom to make sure that it actually refreshes when you change it? Yeah, that really hurts. So the best place to get any information is there. HTML5 Rocks is really comprehensive on the information for it. Or you can listen to Jake Archibald talk about everything. He's a Google guy, so he kind of knows what he's talking about, at least most of the time, which is really useful. So the next part is service workers. Who's heard of that? Because it's like the in topic for all front-end conferences at the moment. Seriously, that few people have heard of service workers. That's what, 6 of you. Right. Basics of service workers are background processing in JavaScript. So you can essentially offload workloads you'd have usually running as a horrible while loop or something equally as disgusting in the front end and offload it into the back. Only problem is it currently runs only in Chrome, and even more annoyingly, it doesn't run in all versions or at all. So it's a great thing in theory, but kind of useless until it becomes a web standard and at least Firefox takes it up, because then at least you've got enough people that can use it. So it's a great theoretical thing. Oh, yeah, before I forget, more information. Once again, Jake Archibald, the Jaffa Cake. The man knows an awful lot about this stuff, so I think I've spent a few days pestering him on Twitter and having an argument, which is always entertaining when you have an argument with Google. So next bit is local storage. Anyone heard of that? Hey, everybody's heard of local storage. So you've all messed around with key value pairs in the front end, and you've had the inevitable why am I using a cookie in the browser argument, which it's fair enough. Once again, more information, but this time at Mozilla, because oddly enough, HTML5 Rocks doesn't cover it that well, which is a bit annoying. So next bit is Web SQL and IndexeDB. Hands up anyone who's played with this stuff. Right, so you've all played around with SQLite and Cordova, and which essentially sits on top of these two as well. This is pretty damn good. Can't complain about it. It's SQL in the browser. Kinda. What it actually is a transactional data store which is mildly relational. So you can treat it as SQL, but you really shouldn't, because eventually something will go bang. Like you will actually try doing a proper query and it just won't work, which, you know, is a little annoying. So browser compatibility for this stuff. Oh, that's really annoying. This is what you get for using HTML5 slides. Yes, it'll work everywhere. Yes, you can give it to people. No, it doesn't zoom. Stupid. Right, so you can have in the desktop browser WebSQL or IndexeDB everywhere from IE 10 and above. Who here supports below IE 10 nowadays? I pity you. I really pity you. So, from 10 and above. And from the mobile point of view, it's everywhere as well. I actually don't think I've seen an Android device running anything less than 4.4 in about a year. So if you find anybody who is, shoot them so they can get the upgrades for security reasons. Insecure devices are bad things. It's like people who write their websites in HTTP without the S. Looking at you, some people in this room. So, but there is a problem with this. API differences. You know, that lovely thing where the fact that you've got to roll it onto two things. So you've got to start hand rolling a load of code on top, and I'm not a fan of that. You've got to do some horrible API detection to find out which one you're meant to be looking for. Eventually, you've got to write a horrible abstract layer so that you can pipe it through to the right thing in the right database at the right time so it doesn't fall over. That's going to make me sick if I carry on putting that one. And eventually, you're going to have to roll your own infrastructure into there somewhere. Most of the time, that would be just a pull. So an RSS feed to just bring everything out. Yay! Or you'll have to try and do some horrible synchronization stuff. And by the time you got through the 6 months of doing this and making it production ready, you're just exhausted. You just want to fall over and go to hell. Because that's where you've been for the last 6 months. There has to be another way. There is. The Pouchdb way. And it's awesome! Right. Who here has heard of Pouchdb? Okay. So I actually do need to explain some of this stuff. That makes it more interesting, makes the talk last a little longer. Thanks. So, what's so special about it? It's an in-database browser. Runs on WebSQL, runs on IndexeDB. Essentially automates the whole process of abstracting, detection, and piping. You can manually do this, wouldn't suggest it. It's a local database for Node, so you can run this as a dependency in your Node application. I wouldn't advise it in production because it's not designed to scale at all, but you can still develop on it, which is useful, especially if you spend a lot of time in a train or a plane. You can also use it as an interface library for anything CouchDB or CouchDB interface-like. So you can pipe information to and from your front end to your back end without an API. Who here hates having to roll their APIs? Because there's always going to be somebody that breaks them for you. Seriously, you like writing your APIs and having to secure them against idiots. There is always that one person that will break everything. Everything. So the getting started bit should give you basics of it. Pouchdb is essentially a JavaScript implementation of CouchDB in the browser. So later on, that will make a bit more sense. So getting started in Node.js. Oh my God, that's tiny. Who here can see the npm command? Okay, only the people on the front row can actually understand what this slide is showing you. Great. Essentially, it's an npm command, and then a require, and then just loading it with a database name, and that will start running it as a dependency in your back end when you run Pouch server as well. You can then do it in the browser. Oh, I'm really regretting doing this bit now. So you can do a Bower install, you can do a CDN install, and all it is instantiating Pouch, giving it a database name, and letting it go. Simple. Or you can make it as in the client library. Oh my God, that's horribly small. Let's try again. No! Did I get smaller? No touchy, no touchy. Right, so you can point it at CouchDB-based interface thing, and it will essentially interface to that rather than storing it locally. That's quite good if you don't want to have to bother doing it in the browser. You just want the browser interface. So you take anything that looks like this. So a JSON doc. You know, that's essentially the JSON doc for today. I was going to do 45 of them, but decided that's way too much effort. So there's just one for all of today. And you can do a create statement. Essentially, Pouchdb, like CouchDB, roughly follows the HTTP standards for RESTful interfaces. So post, put, get, delete. So we have the create statement. You know, quite self-explanatory. We then have the read statement. You can get where I'm going with here. It's a bit crud. There's the update statement. So if you were right on the front of the stage, you could see that the rev is staying and some information is changing in there. It genuinely does it. Sorry for those of you at the back who can't see anything. There will be slides at the end. And there's, the other thing is the put command also can create. So if you provide it with the ID, it allows you to specify the ID you want. So as a URL schema, you actually get to provide it rather than having a massively long GUID that the server produces for you, which every so often you want, every so often you really don't want to do. And then there's delete and destroy. I like calling delete destroy for some reason. It makes me feel big and powerful. So that's the basics covered. What else can it do? Bulk uploads and bulk reads. Same as any database, essentially CSV out, CSV in. Except it's JSON in, JSON out. You just have to do a CSV conversion yourself. A colleague of mine wrote an amazing library for that, so if you want to actually do it, I can give you the library. There's then this wonderful thing. Anybody actually see that at all? Because I can barely see it and it's right in front of me. Right, it's the changes feed. Any Couch-based interface has something called the changes feed. So whenever a new document is added to the database, a change is made to the database, it will actually throw up into this feed, and then you can actually manipulate it. In this case, we are showing live documents that have been added since now, and changes complete, which usually means something's been cancelled, and error. So when something goes bang, which inevitably it will do, because it's on the internet and nothing really works. And then there's attachments. Yeah, this is the really weird thing. So none of you have used Couchdb before. So Pouchdb and Couchdb both allow you to save attachments inside the database. Yes, it's the dirtiest version of S3 you will ever look at. You can store images, low-level audio files, essentially anything, but the larger the file, the more disk space you take up, and the worse your indexes will be. So keep them small. It's usually a good suggestion. So create, read, delete. And then there's query. This one's going to be a little awkward. You can provide it with a design doc, so you can tell it a map reduce function to process it and to give you the information in the format you actually want, because otherwise it gives you back the information in a completely unordered fashion because it is an inconsistent data system. Sorry about that. We don't have IDs 1 through 1 million. It's a hash of anything that's GUID, and it'll somehow sit there in a sequence ID. So you can provide it with a design doc to force it to order it. And then you can query against it. And nobody here is going to be able to read that query. So this is kind of superfluous. But yeah, you can tell it to give it a doc, and then you can pull out the information in an order or in a format you actually want. So you can actually have viable information, which, pretty damn good. And then there's replication. This is where we get a little bit special. You can tell Pouch to send information to Couchdb, to Cloudant, to any Couchdb-based interface, and you can tell it to retrieve information. So this could be a one-shot, so you just want to grab everything, leave it offline, or you want to push everything you've just done for the last 15 hours on a flight and drop it on the database. That's kind of useful. As a byproduct of that, we also have sync. Now, this is kind of like secret black voodoo magic stuff, because somehow I actually don't understand the JavaScript for this piece of the library. It just seems to work in a spaghetti-like format. It will essentially take all the information from your local database, all your information from your online database, and it will just keep them in sync. I think the latency is pretty low at the moment with the code base, depending on your actual data store, but it will just keep going back and forward, updating. Suggestion, don't try doing lots of updates on documents, because then it will just explode with B trees. But if you're just doing loads and loads of writes, it'll just keep going, add at both ends. So you can have 3 PouchDBs, 1 database. All of them will get the same information eventually, which is really quite cool. Now for the magic bit. This is why I'm here. I'm from Cloudant, and we are CouchDB. Thus, we like PouchDB, because I'm a web dev, which means I can actually use Couch in a format that makes sense to me. So we can make stuff sync. So if you have no idea who we are or what we do, we're CouchDB. I may have said it a few times. Couchdb, 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 Couchdb. We are one of the core committers behind the Apache project, and we just happen to have operationalized it for everybody, so it's on the web for you to play with. Magic source there is the fact that whatever you do in Pouch, you can do in Couch. Whatever you do in Couch, you can do in Pouch. It's kind of simple. Now for something really quite dangerous. I'm going to code on stage. Literally every time I do this, it's like, I'm going to regret this. I'm going to regret this immediately, especially when I can't read it. Now, can anyone read this file? Because, no, that's my slide deck. That would be why it's not readable. There we go. There's the horrible, horrible way we're going to do this. I'm going to try and make it so that you guys can send me messages in the next 10 minutes. Please don't be abusive. I'm going to get enough heckling from the front row as it is. They're the only ones who've been able to see this and go, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. So everybody can here send me a message eventually. So what we've got here is a basic HTML file. Let's just exit. Keep forgetting, it's reveal, doesn't play nice. I have put ngrok in. So you're all tunneled through to my Mac if you go to that URL. So you can go to that. It'll do nothing right now because the JavaScript doesn't exist. Here is the horrible, horrible, horrible file. And yes, for those of you who do load it, I am using jQuery because I'm too lazy to hand roll all this in 15 minutes on a talk. There's just too little in it for my life to survive after that.
You zoom in a bit.
Say when. Happy now? Be reasonable to the man writing the code. I can't even get 70 characters across now. Oh, well, it's so bad I can't even remember where I was finding it. Right, so we're going to add something. And I'm going to just wrap this in the most horrible of formats. All of you may kill me for my ridiculously bad web dev skills. I can't even remember which version of jQuery I was using. Afterwards, right now, just bear with the horrendous typing of a monkey at a keyboard, as seen earlier. Actually, screw that, we're not going to do anything. Also, warning, I'm not going to do any error checking, so when anything goes wrong, you're pretty much going to have to be the ones that tell me, because I'm going to just sit here going, oh, it's all going wrong again. Right, so we just need to do var doc. Everything that goes into and out of Couchdb and Pouch is JSON documents. So who here likes JSON APIs? Seriously, do all of you like XML? Are you sadists? There's a reason XML is meant to burn in hell. Usually it's this one. Right, so I'm going to give myself a user. And that is, you know what, I can't actually remember what I named it. ID user, oddly enough, val. There's no error checking, there's no validation, so when this goes wrong, it's going to go horribly wrong. So, yeah, let's just see what happens. Ooh. So, and I need a timestamp, because later on that may actually be damn useful. So, new to get time. Okay, right. Oh, yeah, there's something really important I need to do first. That would be var instantiate the database that we actually want to send things to. What's the point in trying to save something as an app when you can't talk to it? Okay, so what shall we call this database? Let's just call it Bristech. It's not going to matter unless any of you actually want to keep this information afterwards. So db, we've got db.post doc function error resp. Right. What shall we make it say? Let's just make it output the response. Right, let's see how nasty this looks when I open up the console. Wow, that's really not as bad as I thought it was going to be. There is one problem with tunneling from my phone to the outside world through ngrok. It's just painfully slow. Right, might put a hashtag, which I'm going to use here. is UK mad elves. Don't ask where that came from. C, we have now created a document. It has now been dumped into... I forgot to tell it to prevent doing the default, didn't I? It's just going to keep reloading the page. So, as I was saying, things are going to go horribly wrong. At least this time I remembered to stop myself from screaming at it. E.prevent default. And just because I'm a pedant and I'm really loathing this, yeah, I know that's bad practice, but hey-ho, worse things have happened. So, yeah, hello, Bristol. Huzzah, it saved something and not refreshed the page, so I can actually carry on with this demo and get it to work. Right, so we've posted stuff. That's kind of useful. You know what I was saying about the changes feed earlier? We want to detect when things happen. Well, I may have cheated a little bit and commented out all this code earlier because the chances of writing a typo in these many lines of really, really stupid JavaScript is just way too high. So I don't want that bit. That's for later on if I can be bothered. So on change, we're going to do db dot. This is the point where I'm really glad I remembered to put the reference in because I've forgotten how to do a batch fetch. Thank you. So right. Oddly enough, in Couchdb and in Pouch, this is a bit where it gets a little awkward because in Couchdb it's called alldocs and it's called alldocs here, but it's spelt differently and I always forget how to spell it. So, right, rasp. Let's see what happens when we do that. It should return rasp dot rows. Now if I reload this, once again, tunneling, not great. Anyone got a funny story to tell me whilst I wait for this to happen? Or should I just carry on coding and hope that blind code actually works for once on stage? Let's go with the blind code, because... Or we can actually just... No, it's still working. Ngrok and... Oh, there we go. So... And we have an object of the 3 last things we added to it. Yay! I've just proved that offline stuff actually works. I could turn off the Wi-Fi and this would stay here. I'm not turning off the Wi-Fi. The chances of getting back onto it are really going to hurt. There's no chance I'm trying that one. That is not worth my life. Right, let's be really, really cheeky and really, really lazy, and let's just go... Yes, I know I should be using the for each, but I'm going to be really lazy and do it good old-fashioned in a for loop, because... why not? And we're just going to go, what did I call the name of that object? Every time we detect a change now, we are going to slap onto the end of this the message we made. Append, actually, prepend, so the new message is at the top of the form. Really sorry, ladies and gents, this is taking forever, but I'm, oddly enough, not the fastest typer, even though I'm actually practiced this quite a lot. So we want div class. Yes, I am rolling my own bootstrap bits into this, right into the skeleton, because I forgot to do it earlier. HTML. Right. No. How many people have had to write code like this before and then just gone, why, oh, why, oh, why? Usually followed by, I hate the fact that I have to do something like this for a client. Whoa, that's bright. Morning. Baba? Oh, yeah, told you when things are going to go wrong, you're the ones who are going to see it, not me. It also means that you have plenty of material to heckle me on, so please don't. Right, var data, because I really can't be bothered to keep writing resp rows out. Data.doc .user. And then we added a timestamp in there, so to prove that things are going in and coming out, make sure that it is new date data.doc.timestamp. So I had. Thanks. Anonymous person in the front row. And I've obviously made a giant cock up there. There we go. And we obviously want to be able to actually see what message we have. I've also been sensible for once in my life and included marked. So when we get around to doing this, you can start sending me in Markdown rather than me having to actually bother to learn how to style it really quickly on stage. So if we reload this, and then why don't I just learn how to do this faster? I still love that awesome GIF. I only found it the other day, and I think it was the best thing. But yeah, nah. What? Value, object, rev, object. Yeah, that would be why I haven't told it to include all the docs. By default, Couch and Pouchdb don't actually return the document with it. They return the ID for you to then do another lookup on it. But you can be really lazy, and you can tell it to give you all the docs, like I just did. Let's carry on with the coding this bit. So we've done all the docs. This is going to, every time we write a message, it's going to load it. So if anybody feels like it, they can go to that URL. It's horrible, I know. And you can start sending me stupid messages, because I'm still waiting for it to load. Really? Yeah. Is it not big enough? No. No, that doesn't get bigger with Command Plus. Right, it's 784 AEFE 04. Really? AFE 04.ngrok.io. All right, and what's going to happen is that's going to start saving stuff offline for you guys. Now, we're going to do a little bit of extra magic sauce. We are going to make this thing sync. And literally, this is the simplest thing the planet has ever seen. It is one line of JavaScript and one hokily long URL. So we have named this database Bristech. To save on typoing, I'm going to copy and paste. If I make a copy and paste error, this is going to look embarrassing. We are going to go to Cloudant. That's the design doc for later. We are going to get to permissions. I'm going to grant you permission to all start writing whatever you want. So in a moment, you're going to be able to swear profusely, and I'm going to have no ability to stop you, because that's a really well thought out idea. But it's going to be entertaining, at the very least. And then we go here, and we give everybody replicator. Actually, don't do it that way, because that means everybody on the internet can do it, rather than just you guys. Yeah, there we go. So that username can now do whatever they want to this database. I'm going to regret this. I'm saying that a lot today, aren't I? Even though I'm really awake, and usually it means I'm quite happy. And usually I'm a miserable git. Colon at, and let's get the database for this. So let's go back, API URL. Why is it doing that to me? That's why, API URL. Let's just leech that straight out. Whoever told me to zoom this in this much, I really don't like you. Can't read it on my own screen. That's really quite painful. Right, now if this works, magically, yes, that appears to have worked. Haha. We are seeing messages. Holy cow. They're all just me at the moment. Is anybody here sending me some offensive material? Have you sent me actually offensive material? Not offensive. Right. You're going to need to refresh your browser because what's going to happen is it's going to start syncing and it's going to send all the information to me. And holy cow, someone discovered the emoji keyboard. Okay, that escalated quickly. You know what? I was going to show you how to do an update on these, but that's a little too dangerous. The one thing you will notice here is the fact that it's coming out non-sequentially, and I've also not checked that I'm not overloading the same element twice. So we've got about 15 copies of the same. Oh my dear God! There's not enough screen. I want to tell me who's the username. Has somebody put a username attached to this? No, nobody's put a username, so I can't see who you horrible, horrible people are. Oh, there we go. Oh, foo. That's original. But right, we've just proved in how many lines of JavaScript that you can take information offline, sync it to another device, and share it between everybody in this room. So hands up who actually sent information to me, because you've all used foo, I can't see who did it. Right, that would explain the amount of spam I've just received. Thanks. Right. And I'm really also aware that we're about to have dinner, so let's go with the roundup. So, Pouchdb is awesome. It's a database in your browser. It's a database in your Node code. It's an actual database in itself. It's an interface onto any Couchdb thing. So, the reason I love it is I started working at Cloud and went, ooh, I'm a web dev. I don't know how to use any of this stuff in iOS and Android. Oh, there's a library for that. Yes. So we can take information from any device, share it with any other device. There are some security concerns about the fact that everybody is pointing into the same database, but we have strategies to get around like that. So you can have one database per user. You can have a write-only strategy, which we've just implemented there. So there are many ways around this. So we've just about ready for food soon. I'm actually running on time. That's a miracle for me. I'm glad I talked quick. So, any questions?